Hey everyone, this video is going to be an AutoCAD basics tutorial video. This will mainly focus on the generic AutoCAD commands, how to set up files, how to just start from AutoCAD if you've never used it before. This is going to be a little bit geared towards the Steel Bridge team, but that doesn't mean some of these tips, tricks, and commands that I'm going to go over cannot be used for just generic classes or your own personal projects or things like that. When you have the software downloaded, you can open up AutoCAD and this will be the screen that pops up. Some of your recent documents may be different, but this will be the generic file. You're going to go up here to the top left corner and see this little page thing here. If you hover over it, it comes up with a little description of the command. This is new. We're going to create a new blank file. You click that. It'll pull up a window that has a bunch of different templates here. The template that you're going to want to use 99% of the time is this acad.dwt. It's the default template that's already selected. You click open. It'll open up a screen. You'll have your little crosshairs here, and then it will have this gridded background. That is how all the files start. Now, good thing to get into, always save your file right away. Sometimes CAD likes to crash. If it does crash, there are ways to recover backup files, but you're going to want to save it and then save frequently because random things happen and it crashes. So you can click this big A here up in the top left. It pulls up all, your normal file explorer type thing. Go to save as. You always want to save it as a drawing. AutoCAD can save into other formats. All of these other formats have to do with if you're exporting a different software. In a later video, we'll go over how to export CAD into SAP 2000, and that will involve exporting or saving it as a different type of file. So you can name this whatever you want. I'm going to name it tutorial basics for now and just click save. You don't actually have to follow along with that. I'm just doing it for this tutorial. Now, first few things you're going to want to do when you're starting a new file is down here, there's this type a command. Now, all of the commands in AutoCAD can either be accessed through this bar up here or by typing in a certain word or letters that will then take you to that command. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type in units. You'll see how it pops up next to my crosshair. There's a bunch of different commands here. I can click on the first one. Now, once you type the word in, you can just press enter. You don't necessarily have to click on the word here that says units. So I'm going to press enter and it's going to pull up this screen. So this will be setting your drawing units for what you're going to be drawing in. Now, this is very important when you're exporting CAD files to other programs because the program will recognize the base units that you set this in. When you're working on the bridge, it's always a good idea to draw an architecture and then inches, and then keep your angle as decimals. If you want to draw in degrees, minutes, radians, whatever you want to draw on, you can. I find it easiest to stay in degrees. And I said architecture. So you'll just hit OK. Now your units are set. The other thing you're going to want to do is there's different snapping tools within CAD. These snapping tools are helpful for when you're trying to draw lines and make sure they're connected in the right location. Once again, very important for bridge. If something's not connected and you export it to another program to run structural analysis, that program may not recognize the two members as connected, which is going to give you all kinds of problems when you actually run the analysis. Now, if you go down to this bottom corner here, you'll see this square with another square in the top left corner. This is your snapping tools. Your snapping tools are going to be extremely useful when trying to draw the bridge and make sure members are connected. If they are not connected, you may have problems later on when running the structural analysis. So if you just click on this symbol, you'll see how it kind of turns off and then it turns back on. So that turns my snapping tools on and off. And you can also see on the command bar here, it says, oh, snap on, oh, snap off. So that just is another heads up for if your snapping tools are not on. You're going to want to draw with these on. Now, if you click this arrow next to it, It will show all of the different commands of what you can use when you're drawing. You can also click this object snap settings to pull up another window where you have physical boxes you can check. Now, these are the ones I like to have on when I am drawing with the bridge. As you can see, I have certain ones checked. You can check whichever ones you want or do not want. If you hover over one, it will give you a description on what that command does. And then additionally, these symbols next to it are the symbol that will pop up when you're physically drawing when one of these snaps are applied. I'll show you this a little bit later when I get into actually drawing, but that's just what those symbols mean. You also have another useful tool up here, which is polar tracking. If you click on that, it will show you the different angles that you can snap to when you're drawing lines. So I normally like to leave this in 30. You can set these to whatever you want. You can type in a number. It doesn't really matter what this is. Personally, I like to just leave it at 30. After you set your object snaps, you click OK. The last thing you're going to want to set up before you start drawing is your layers. Now up here are where you can set all your different layer properties. You're going to want to click Layer Properties. It'll pull up another box. Now, whenever you start AutoCAD, the only default layer that should be showing up is 0 layer. Name is 0. Sometimes there's a def points layer. You can ignore that. But you never want to draw anything on the default layers that CAD has. Whether it's 0 or def points, you're not going to want to draw there because once again, it causes issues later on when you're exporting. So to create a new layer, there's this little symbol right here with this little yellow orange looking star thing. If you click on that, it creates a new layer. Defaults highlights the layer name. All right, I'm going to call this layer Upper Deck. Now, once again, I'm doing this more for bridge, so that's why I'm calling it Upper Deck. These layer names can be anything you want them to be. You can make as many as you want. I highly recommend making numerous layers, as many as necessary for what you're doing. It will just pay off later. The other thing you're going to want to change is this color. Right now, defaults to white. You can click on it, and it pulls up this whole wheel of colors here. You can choose whatever colors you want. I'm going to pick red because I have a feeling that will show up the clearest in this video. So I'm going to change that layer to red. We're going to click OK. And then right up here, there's this little close button. You can close that. Okay, now that we've created a new layer, we want to draw things on that new layer. So up here, where this little box is with this drop-down arrow, it shows you the current layer you're drawing in. You're going to want to click that and select Upper Deck. Okay, now we're drawing in the Upper Deck layer. Now we will start to get into some of the different drawing commands, some of the more useful ones, and the most common ones you'll be using for steel bridge. Now over here, there's line. Pretty straightforward. It draws a line. You click it. It says specify first point. You can actually put the coordinates. Now these coordinates are all referenced off this point here, which is 0, 0. I tend to ignore those. They don't really matter too much for our kind of drawing. Now you click once to draw, you can make your line. Now you see this green dashed line appearing. So that is one of those snapping commands that I was talking about. This one's called polar snapping. So it snaps to 0 degrees. Now if I move this up, you see my degrees changing on here. And since I have my polar tracking set to 30 degrees, it's going to snap at 30 degrees. So every 30 degrees, it's going to have that snap. So then 60, 90, and so on. So I will draw this line. I'll just draw it at 0 degrees and click out here somewhere. So, okay. Now, as you can see, when you make a click after drawing a line, it immediately jumps into the next command of drawing another line. Now you'll say, well, I want to stop the line there. So if you want to end your line and only draw that one segment, you press escape, cancels the command. Here's your line. So once you have your line, you can click on it. When you click on it, you have these blue dots. These blue dots will allow you to move the line, make the line longer, do all kinds of different things. So the center point is always one that helps you move it. As you can see, I've grabbed the line and I can move it. So if I place it here, it'll move it to there. And then these endpoints will allow you to stretch the line, make it longer, make it shorter, move it around, whatever you want to do. You can click on it. I can move it here. I can move it there. It doesn't really matter where I want to put it. I'll just drop it over here for now. So that's your basic line command. So as I alluded to before, we're going to go over some of the different snapping commands that we set up at the beginning of this file. One way to draw a line, as I showed, is by clicking the line up here. Another way is you can just type L and then press enter, and it will start the line command. You can see it down here. Line command has begun, and I can draw lines that way. Now, when I go to the end of this line, so this little hourglass symbol is the symbol for nearest. That means it will, when you try to draw, it'll snap to the nearest object. I advise not keeping that on because it causes all kinds of problems when you think things are snapped to correct points and they are not. So right here, you can see this nearest has a checkbox. I will just click on it, turns the checkbox off. I can go back. Now you'll notice I was able to do that without ever stopping my line command. I was able to keep that running this entire time. So now I will go to the endpoint here. And you'll see the square. The square means endpoint. As you can see, as I hover over it, it says endpoint next to it. That means I'm snapped to the endpoint. If I were to click, I would be able to start drawing the line on that endpoint. I'm not going to. Now I'm going to try to drag. Oh, there's the triangle. Triangle means midpoint. Again, if you hover over it, you have midpoint. So that's how the commands kind of work. As you use them more, and as you draw more, you'll know what all the different symbols mean and everything, and you won't have to really pay too much attention to it. So I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to do this one. Oh, there's a little right angle. That's a perpendicular snap. So I'm just going to snap this perpendicular like that. There you go. So that's kind of how you draw lines. Another tool is a polyline. You're not going to use this too much for Steel Bridge, but I'm going to go over it real quick. You can click on polyline, and as you draw, I'm just going to draw a bunch of segments here, kind of box this in. And then once I'm done, I'll press escape. So as you can see with these two lines, they're separate line segments. But with a polyline, it keeps everything connected as you draw it. So that's kind of the useful part of polylines, is if you're trying to draw a long continuous shape, you can draw it all together. As we go across here, we have circle. The generic circle is center and radius. And if you hover over it, it'll give you a little preview of what it means. So your first point is where the 1 is. Your second point is where the 2 is. So you draw the center point and then the radius. Some of these different line commands up here have drop-down arrows. Now, if you click the drop-down arrow, it'll show you different ways to draw the point. So you can draw a circle with clicking the center first and then a diameter, or a 2-point circle or a 3-point circle. There's many different ways. The same is true for an arc. There are many different ways to draw an arc. And then over here, you have rectangles, ellipses, and many other different shapes and lines. Now, all of these things have this little word here with an arrow, which will take you to even more commands. Now, these are hidden away because you're going to use them infrequently compared to all of the commands that AutoCAD defaults to having up top here.